we are in your debit and credit unit, and we're specifically talking about the cost of credit, whether it's credit cards, student loans, other loans that you might take out as you enter adulthood. I've got a volunteer with me today, so would you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Seth. I am an attorney here in Nashville. I work for a boutique firm, and I mostly do real estate law, and then we have a general practice piece to that as well, where we do a lot of mergers and acquisitions and all sorts of contract disputes and issues like that. And we go to court sometimes as well.
Great. Well, today we're talking to the students again about credit, how they pay for things, and more importantly, the importance of paying those loans off. So let's start at the beginning. What are some ways that you pay for just goods and services on a regular basis?
On a regular basis, I would say that I predominantly use a debit card. Outside of that, maybe electronic payments such as Venmo or Cash App or something like that. But then there's other ways too, like checks and other electronic payments and things of that nature. But yeah, so cash generally is what I do. Cash or card.
Okay. What do you remember about your experience with debit or credit cards in your younger years?
So for me, I grew up in a really small town in northern Middle Tennessee, about 45 minutes north of Nashville. And when I grew up, I didn't have a debit card. In fact, I didn't get a debit card until I went to college, so I was 18, I guess. I had a bank account, but I primarily, I got my money from working small jobs, and if that was a check, which a lot of farmers and folks who would pay me would be in check, I would just go cash that check. So yeah, I had no experience really until getting to college, and then realizing that it's a lot easier to hold on to cash in your pocket than just swiping a card that seems like it might swipe at any time at any place.
That's true, and especially when we think about debit cards are helpful in that it is connected to your checking account, so it's tied to money that you already have. If you spend more than that, you're going to have overdraft charges. Where a credit card might have a higher limit, but it's not money that you already have, and it is a little bit easier to often overspend when you're using a piece of plastic versus when you've got those bills to give out and realize that your wallet is empty.
Sure.
Students, here's a statistic for you as we think about this next question. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York reported recently that 35% of Americans under 30 were seriously late on student loan payments, compared with only 21% in 2004. With that said, Seth, what do you think is the number one mistake that young people are making in the financial world today?
I think the number one problem is just making the minimum payment. And that when you make a minimum payment, instead of trying to pay something in full or pay more than a minimum payment, you're just paying the interest, and you're not actually paying the balance down. And not to get too in depth with it, but if you're just paying the interest, your balance is going to stay here no matter how many payments you make, right? And so then you're not doing anything. You're just kind of spinning your tires. So I think that would probably be the biggest issue, and then outside of that would be, just not making late payments, incurring those late fees, and just failing to pay off the debt at all, or thinking that it may not be a big deal, but it impacts. I don't do bankruptcy law, but I know that it's not a fun place that you want to be, and so there are repercussions for that at the end of the day, and that's why it's really important to be fiscally responsible, and to not get your head below water before it's too late.
Certainly can have a lot of implications on trying to buy a home,
Sure.
a car, even certain careers where you have to have credit checks.
Right.
Can all relate to those wise financial decisions. Finally, what words of wisdom would you give to the students about the use of debit cards or credit cards?
With the use of debit cards, I think that just goes to budgeting, and knowing your limits, And that's really something that just comes with accountability and kind of being a grown-up about it, I think. But words of wisdom I would say with regard to credit is just, don't use it if you don't have to, and don't start using it. Because once you start, it's kind of like, it's that first swipe. After that, it's like, oh, wow, this is great, But, don't use it if you don't have to. And pay for cash if you can. And pay with cash, rather, if you can. And try and save money at the same time.
Great advice. Students, hopefully this has been helpful as you think about the cost of credit, how it could be beneficial, but could also be a detriment if you don't use it wisely as you go into this unit and take next steps in your own